Good evening, I'm Councillor Steve Mumford, Vice Chair of the Democratic and General Purpose Committee, and I'm pleased to welcome you to this meeting of the committee. The meeting will be broadcast live and recorded for playback on the Council YouTube channel. Will anyone be recording the proceedings? I only ask this so that people at the meeting know that this will be happening. If there's a fire alarm or if it sounds during the meeting, please remain seated and members of the Democratic Service Team will assess the situation and give further instructions on the evacuation of the building if necessary. They've given me a script, so I'm going great guns here. Item 1, apologies. We've received apologies from Councillor Cooper and Webb. Is there any more? And Councillor Thompson. Item 2, substitute members. Can any substitute members present state their name? So, Michelle?
I'm substituting for Councillor Cooper.
Val?
Councillor Springett for Councillor Webb.
And Councillor Clark.
Substituting for Mike Thompson.
Urgent items. We have an urgent item for item 14, the Allington Millennium Green Trust, which is a nominated nation submitted by a local member. We would, with your permission, I'll take that urgent update on item 14. Item 4, nominations of visiting members. I'm not going to say, are there any visiting members? Could the members that are visiting come forward, state their name and what item they wish to speak on?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Councillor Burton, and I'd like to reserve my right on all items, please.
Any members? Councillor Hinder for item 17 on the agenda.
Councillor Spoon, just to listen and observe, but to reserve my right. Thank you.
Item 5, disclosures by members and officers. Are there any disclosures by members or officers? Councillor Jeffrey.
Obviously, there's a non-pecuniary interest on item 14 for me as part of the urgent update. Or may not be.
And Councillor English.
In relation to the community governance review, I am a member of both Bearsted and Tovell Parish Council, although those shouldn't affect my judgment on any of the issues.
And I will declare that I'm a member of Bolton and Chelsea Parish Council and will speak and vote on any subject. Any more? Disclosures of lobbying. Can I do it in an easier way? Has anyone not been lobbied on item 17? So everyone's declaring lobbying on 17. Are there any more items?
Chair, apologies. I don't know whether I need to declare that I'm a member of Bearsted Parish Council as well regarding item 17. I'm not sure, but just in case I do need to, I'd like to make that declaration.
No, nor am I sure, but if we declare it, we haven't done it wrong, have we? Yeah. To consider when any item should be taken in private because of the nature of the item, I move that all the items on the agenda be taken in public. Item 8, the minutes held on the 29th of March 2023. Are there any comments on those minutes? I move that the minutes of the meeting held on the 29th of March 2023 be approved as a correct record of and signed. Item 9, minutes of the meeting held on the 23rd of May 2023. Has anyone got any comments on those minutes? I move that those minutes of the meeting held on the 23rd of May 2023 be approved as a correct record and signed. Is that agreed? Presentations, item 10, none. Item 11, questions and answer session from members of the public, none. Item 12, questions from members to the chairman, if any, none. Item 13, the committee work programme. I'd like Ryan to update us.
Thank you, Chairman, and good evening, everybody. Just to inform the committee that currently on the work programme we have 2 items for the September meeting. That's the governance review, which is essentially looking at the constitution and our governance model, preparing for going to 49 councillors, and the community governance review decision, which follows on from the stage 2 consultation, which you're considering here, and obviously we'll be discussing a little bit more later. Thank you.
Has anyone got any comments on the works programme as Ryan presented? So, as Chair, I'd like to move that the works programme be agreed. Right. Item 14, unless I've missed anything. Yeah. This is the Allington Millennium Green Trust. It's an outside body. Brian, could you take us through the urgent update?
Good evening again. So the report is hopefully fairly self-explanatory with regards to the outside body position and the fact that we look for nominations. A nomination was received from a ward member, which has been circulated to you to consider tonight. I will just highlight that with outside bodies, we are going through a bit more rigour in terms of finding out exactly what a position involves, particularly with regard to its trustee status. So in this case, the situation is that Allington Millennium Green Limited is the corporate trustee of Allington Millennium Green Trust, which means that as a director for this position, the person would be afforded the protection of being part of a corporate trustee rather than directly a trustee themselves. So I thought I'd just make that clear to the committee. And in fact, the person who's put themselves forward for nomination.
Councillor English.
Yes, this is a outside body which has been in existence for some time, does an excellent job curating one of Maystone's Millennium Greens. It has traditionally been reserved for Bridge Ward members or Allington members in the past, but currently Bridge Ward members. And I see a nomination from one of those members and not from the other one. So in that case, I would like to move that we accept the nomination that's been put forward as a ready volunteer is worth 10 press men and women.
I'd like to second that. Did someone else go? Oh, right.
You've got chairman's privilege.
Councillor Hasty, would you like to second it? Are we happy to carry on?
I just wanted to ask a question. Has the other ward member been contacted to ask? They have. Okay, that's fine. Thank you.
Anyone else wish to comment? Right, then, as per the papers, I'd like to propose... Well, no, we've done it. So all of those in favour? Is it unanimous? Against? And obviously you've abstained. Yes.
Just for the record, there is no actual rule that you have to abstain on voting for yourself. You can if you wish. There is no rule.
Thank you for that, Councillor English. Right. Item 15, we've got amendments to the Constitution, so I'll hand over to Angela Woodhouse.
Thank you, Chairman. So, welcome, members. There are two elements to this report. At Appendix 1 are minor consequential amendments made by the monitoring officer under his delegation, and these are amendments, for example, the new portfolios going in and some other changes we needed to wording following the agreement changes last time to the Constitution. There's also a proposal on the papers to this committee to recommend to Council a change to the Constitution, as it came to our attention during the preparations for the annual meeting that the Constitution, whilst meeting the legal requirements for the removal of the leader, does not contain a specific provision to enable the removal of the leader should councillors wish to pursue this. So additional wording is suggested at which will go in at part A2 7.2, and that is set out at the bottom of page 13. This wording is very similar to the wording that was in our 2014 Constitution, and it was discussed with the Chairman prior to going on to the agenda, but it's for your recommendation should you so wish. Thank you.
Thank you. So really we're looking at voting. Sorry. Which visiting? Oh, sorry, Councillor Burton. I nearly forgot you. Easily done.
Very, very simply, what I wanted to say on this is I really welcome the addition with the rules around removal of the leader. Feel free to do it at any time. But the lack of clarity that existed prior to this was most unhelpful, so fully support that amendment.
Councillor English.
Just an observation, I think we actually did remove the reserve our right to speak on every absolutely item on the agenda some time ago, but I'm not going to die in a ditch over it this evening, but I don't actually believe that provision remains. Members should actually indicate which items they wish to speak on. In terms of the substantive item here, it clearly would be very unsatisfactory if we had, as some members had in some places wanted to at the last annual meeting, proceeded with removing the leader, and then we turned out afterwards that we removed said leader unconstitutionally. That would have been extremely embarrassing to all sides, and probably not recommended as a procedure to take us forward. So this is a clarification that is needed. I hope that we will not be in that position of removing leaders willy-nilly, despite the relative ease of this procedure, because that's hardly a recipe for stability. But it is necessary that if we do so, that we have a clear method of doing so. So I propose the recommendation, option 1.
Councillor Perry, you wish to second? Do you wish to
No,
speak?
I just want to. I've got a quick question. I have no problem with what you're trying to do. Don't get me wrong, but is it right just 2 members can? That's what I was a little curious about. That's all. Thank you.
Yeah, so 2 members is what we had previously, but if you wished to change that, you could, but you probably have to be careful you're not getting to a point where you actually stop it, preventing people from putting it forward. But I would understand if you wanted to increase the number slightly, but that's the number we had last time. So it's a choice.
Were you seconding that?
Yeah, I don't want to die in a ditch on this. I think I'll stick and I'll second Councillor English. Thank you.
I'll take that to the vote. So all in favour? Against, if any? Any abstentions? Margaret, you must vote. Is that a 4, is it?
Abstention.
Abstention, thank you. Yeah, item 16, this is members' training. It's just a discussion. I think they're looking for additions on the training programme and acceptance of what they've put down in the papers.
Thank you, Chairman. So every year we ask this committee to review the training held the previous year and consider options that you'd like to take forward for this year for member development. Obviously, planning and licensing set their own training programme as regulatory committees. This is very much everything else. We have identified a number of topics for this year at section 3.1 of the report, and some of which have already taken place, for example, the induction for new councillors and some training on scrutiny. We're also recommending training on the Nolan principles, questioning skills to assist both Policy Advisory Committee and Overview and Scrutiny members, and we're also looking at bespoke training on preparing for a 4-yearly term of office, because in 2024 we make the change, and that is going to be a cultural shift for us as an organisation. So it'll be training for both members and officers to get us ready for that. And then we also have carbon literacy training, which aligns with our biodiversity and climate change action plan, which we're looking to hold in person by an external organisation, which I think should be a really interesting topic for members and something hopefully you'll all get behind. But I would really like to know if there's any other training that you think could be useful to include in the programme, or if you're happy with what we put forward. We'll also have regular briefings like we did last year as well. Thank you.
Councillor Hastie.
Thank you, Chairman. I was just going to mention that with the sort of change to a 4-yearly term, that we don't know what could happen as a result of that, and we could lose the entire council or half of the council, and a lot of experienced people could go or not, and we need to have a kind of training programme in place that in the event that that does happen, we're not left like other councils have been in the past and be completely inexperienced and in a very bad state. That's the only comment I would make.
Councillor Bartlett.
Thank you, Chair. I was, as Chairman of the Corporate Services Committee, asked by one member there if there was could be some training on some of the financial reports that were there, and I did say that there'll be sort of briefings on the audit committee that might be worth him going to, but perhaps for new members some training on the financials side and the financial reporting might be useful.
Councillor Jeffrey.
Thank you. Yeah, I broadly support the list here, particularly obviously the carbon literacy training. And the Nolan principles, it's good to see those in here, although the Nolan principles don't actually apply to our standards documents, as far as I can recall, which I think is a slight problem. The one I would like to see added is some diversity training, I think. It's always useful, I think.
We are writing all these down, honestly. Councillor English.
Yeah, I support the suggestions made so far, although I'm not quite sure how we would do the 4-yearly term of office one. That's quite an interesting question, because you might end up preparing for one scenario and end up with a completely different scenario. So it could be a major piece of work or so small as to be meaningless. It's a tricky one, that. What I would observe over the years is that the ability of councillors to formulate resolutions and to get outcomes out of committees is low. The skill set and how to write a motion, to change a resolution, to get an outcome, is a skill that about maybe 3 members of this council possess, unless applying it to planning where we do learn that skill. It's because we're not trained in it. So committee procedures training shouldn't just be about the rules and regulations of committee. It should be about how do I change the outcome of this committee? How do I get an outcome that I want different to the recommendation on the papers? because we are not trained in that, and as members we need to be trained in that, because otherwise, frankly, we just would end up rubber stamping things or not questioning things. So I think it is something that we fall down on year in, year out.
So, from me, there's a lot of members, an awful lot of us, that are aware of planning and all about planning. But there's also new members and other members that don't get that involved in it, need to be aware of certain issues with planning. And later this year, we will have some decisions to make as a full council. And I believe for every member that we should have something that is based on planning, not talking about the NPPF and all of that. It's about the operation of Maidstone Borough Council with a sound, current, adopted local plan against a Maidstone Borough Council operating without a local plan. Well, I know a lot of people here will be aware of that. I believe that needs to be right across the council, and we should all realise what we are voting on and the impact on the council, whichever way they decide is best for this council. So that's sort of explaining it in detail. I'm sure you can write down something a lot simpler than that, but I think that's quite important. Yes, go for it.
Yeah, thank you everyone for those suggestions, all eminently sensible and can be accommodating in the training programme. So Councillor Hasty, you're right, that is a definite possibility, isn't it, in terms of a chance. So we've already got it booked in for January to do that thoughtful look ahead at 24-25. So the training in terms of new members and that induction, because it's going to have to be a lot bigger and a different process. I'm happy I could bring that back to this committee before the end of the year so you could have a look at that and have some input. That would be great. On the other training suggested, I know Mark Green will be more than happy to do financial training and briefings, and he's done it before for corporate services PAC members, but we could extend the invitation for others because finance is always a bit of a tricky one. EDI training, great suggestion, definitely take that forward as an option. And then the training on resolutions and outcomes, again, we can either get someone in or we can have a look at that and develop something in-house as probably a small briefing session for members so they can go through and test some ideas. We used to do it for scrutiny where we helped formulate recommendations, so I'm sure we can come up with something. Yes, so I'm sure I've got recollections of doing that in here. And then the local plan review technical briefing, like looking at the options in terms of a local plan, having one in place and not, we can certainly take that forward with planning for all councillors as an open session that they can come along to. So thank you everyone, I can take those on board.
Councillor Clark.
Thank you, Chairman. I was just going to mention also that we have some briefings which are quite repetitive, so we see the same slideshows again and again, and I just wonder, and I'm not actually criticising that, what I'm saying is it wouldn't be a bad thing for us to film and make available online to members all of our briefings, because if we, sometimes officers will report that there's quite a low turnout for a particular briefing, well, people genuinely have things that conflict, and it would be very good to be able to just pick up that briefing later.
So yeah, I don't disagree with that, provided that what we're not doing is providing that as an option, so that people don't actually turn up to the briefing. So all you've got is officers here saying, well, actually, it's going to be recorded, so we'll just watch the video. There has to be, I think we tried it with planning, I think it was, and what we did is there was a process where you had to sign off that you had done it, and then it became live. So on that, I can understand the point, but I think on that,
I think that we have to try to. I mean, sometimes we have some really good officers that give us briefings, then they leave the council, and that no one ever gets to see that briefing again. Or we see a briefing that happens before an election and then new members come forward and they don't get to see it. And I just think there's an opportunity there.
Councillor Springer.
Thank you. I have no objection to recording. I think that's a great idea, but I actually think that the training on the local plan and the implications should be mandatory for all those that are liable to vote on it, because it is such a significant thing. You know, I think we shouldn't allow people just to disappear off and say, oh yes, I'll look at the recording, and they don't. So that's just, I support entirely what Councillor Mumford is saying. It's very important.
So really what I'm asking now, can that be made compulsory? I wouldn't have thought so.
No, we can't make that mandatory, but I would suggest that group leaders get behind it and ensure their members attend, which I'm sure they will.
So before I move this forward, it's no good giving me a script because I will go off piece. Visiting members. Is there any visiting member would like to give their penny's worth on this item? So what the proposal here is we agree the programme with the addition of the suggested items tonight. So I'm willing to propose that. Do I have a seconder? I've got John. I was looking the other way, sorry. Councillor Perry's second. Do you want to speak?
No, I'm very happy with all the recommendations. I think they're excellent. Thank you.
All those in favour? Councillor Springer, yeah, thank you. I do realise you was having your own meeting. Okay, against, abstained. I think I was supposed to say it, and that's carried. Now the meat of tonight is the Community Governance Review, Parishes, Stage 2 consultation. We've got two representations on this item. Two people have asked to speak. And could I ask, I'm assuming it's Councillor McLean from Boxley Parish Council. Are you there? Could you come forward? And you have 3 minutes. But I sometimes go off piece, but don't make a pick of it.
Mr. Lowe.
Oh, you're away.
Sorry, thank you. Good evening, members. Firstly, Boxley Parish Council is shocked that the proposal being debated by the Democracy and General Purpose Committee and a decision made before Boxley Parish Council has had the chance to make any comments or even be informed of the proposal changes to its boundaries. This proposal would have profound consequences for the parish and yet has not been brought to the attention of the parish council. And the parish council has not been consulted or given any chance to comment on this proposal. We would like all the information below considered at the meeting and all the answers made part of this decision-making process. The final recommendations for Boxley Parish in this report on the electrical arrangements for MBC dated November 2022 stated that MBC should comprise of 15 councillors made up from the following: Boxley Grove Green 5, Boxley North 6, Boxley South 2, Boxley South East 1 and Boxley Woodlands 1. As these parish wards lie wholly within a new ward boundary, there is no need to alter the parish boundaries, nor, it's stated, anywhere in this review what if the benefits would occur to the residents from such a move. BPC are strongly in the opinion that the boundary should remain as it stands for the reasons set out below. Many of the parish council's assets are in the south of the parish. If the south of does not exist, what becomes of these assets? By law, the parish will no longer be able to maintain these assets if they are no longer in the parish, but has no term commitments to the plus consideration financial investments. These asset concerns are Franklin Drive, a play area, we have a lease of 99 years. Weaver in Diamond Jubilee Orchard, play area, community orchard, recreation space, we have a 125-year lease for. Vinters Valley Nature Reserve, BPC is a custodian trustee and donates a large sum towards the annual running cost. The Nature Reserve would not be able to be funded itself without this grant. The War Memorial at Grove Green, BPC's asset register, and are maintained by BPC. Grove Green Village Hall, custodian trustee. Weathering Heath Nature Reserve, volunteers that look after this heath are supported by the grants of the parish council. Dove Hill allotments, Boxley Parish Council burial ground, St Mary's and All Saints Church, village halls. Obviously we have 5 members of staff and 4 parish councillors would be affected by the boundaries of this change. Thank you, members.
Thank you very much. And the second speaker is Councillor Vivian Gibson, Chairman of Lewes Parish Council. Could I invite you to come up and speak? It's the centre button. Red lights go on all over the place. That's the one. It's not a button, really.
Hi, thank you. Thank you for letting me talk. My name's Vianne Gibbons, just to get that straight. The proposal that North Lewes have put in, Lewes Parish Council supports this to extend the boundary northwards to the Wheatsheaf Junction. We believe this will be the benefit of current residents to both areas. We both currently share many amenities, including shops, doctors, schools and playing fields. And both of our areas have worked very closely in the past, and we believe that we can continue to provide an excellent service. Thank you.
Thank you very much. To present the report, we've got Ryan. So if you take over from there, Ryan.
Good evening, everyone. This one will be a little bit longer than the previous report introductions. I'd like to draw members' attention to paragraphs 2.1 to 2.5 within the report to explain the context for where we are in the review. We have completed the stage 1 consultation, officers assessed the responses that were received, and also carried out an assessment of boundaries and put forward proposals where issues were identified. Those proposals were then discussed at a workshop for the members of this committee. We then come on to stage 2 consultation. So paragraphs 2.6 to 2.9 outline the next steps. And it's important to reiterate that no decision on the actual proposals themselves is being taken tonight. The decision tonight is on whether to take draft proposals to stage 2 consultation to gather more evidence. No proposals are set, they're all open to change or removal following the consultation. With that in mind, I think it's important to highlight that there are 2 further decision stages to come once the stage 2 consultation has run. So the first one is that once the stage 2 is completed, there'll be another evaluation by officers and another workshop held with members before a decision report on the outcome of the review for decision by this committee will come in September. Then also in September, Council will be asked if it wishes to implement the outcomes of the review. That is the set process for a community governance review. So we're still some way from the decision-making point. The report sets out a number of proposals, most of which are fairly minor in nature. There are also 3 larger and potentially more significant proposals. These relate to Barming Parish Council, North Lewes and Lewes Parish Council, and the Grove Green and Boxley area. Barming will have a focused consultation as part of Stage 2, but has not been highlighted as significant in the report because it came forward as part of the Stage 1 response and is considered a straightforward change, albeit covering a large number of electors, around about 3,500. For the Boxley Grove Green proposal, I would draw members' attention to the document circulated that the question to be posed at Stage 2 has 3 options, so you should have an urgent update which sets out the consultation. Those 3 options to ask the community and in the consultation at large, including the Parish Council, are for Grove Green to remain part of Boxley Parish, form its own Grove Green parish, or not have a parish. Again, this is to provide evidence for consideration in September's decisions. It's not for decision now. I would also draw members' attention to paragraph 2.29 in the report. This is written in relation to a Tovel proposal to abolish Tovel Parish Council, and although it is with regard to that, I think it should be given weight in any future consideration of the Boxley Grove Green proposal, given its extent. Essentially what it says is that abolishing a parish council, which is not what we're proposing technically for the Grove Green area, but should members in future be minded to unparish the area, it would have the same effect. It says if you're going to abolish or look at abolishing a parish council, you should allow another 2 election cycles to run so that there is an opportunity for the existing community governance arrangements to pick up on the community's issues in that area. And I think that that would have weight in considering the Boxley Grove Green proposal in the future. So even if the community came back and said that they did not want a parish as part of this review, it may well be reasonable to decide to leave it parished and reconsider it in the future, using this review as evidence, which we would be taking now for consideration in the future. There are 2 other elements I'd just like to cover, and I cover in the report before I open it up for people to run through the different proposals. So one is parish size. So overwhelmingly at Stage 1, parishes came back and said they didn't want their sizes changed. There's been a desktop exercise done which is presented to you. And in summary, we do not propose to change parish sizes for those parishes that are remaining the same. But obviously, should a parish have a significant boundary change, we would need to review its size as a result of that happening to make sure there's fair representation. In terms of the consultation content, an additional consultation outline document has been circulated, and I can also display how the website will look to members on the screen. I need to go grab the lead in a second if you want that. And you can have a look at how that will be set out. I'm also happy to answer any questions that members may have. I'm going to get that lead now.
Right, could I ask visiting members? Councillor Burton?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Can I just start by offering an apology if my use of shorthand to say that I wish to speak on every single item offended anyone. I shall laboriously list every item in future if it pleases certain persons. On this item, and I hope that I'm not creating a pecuniary interest for anyone here, I offer to the committee a consideration of a boundary review. And Mr. Chairman, for the sake of being explicit and the legal officer, if one was the chairman of a parish council that potentially would lose a significant precept, whether that creates a pecuniary interest, possibly not, I don't know. But the thing that I do, and this is very much a personal view, if you look at the map, I think it's 2A, and I base this view on having been previously the chairman of Langley Parish Council. I always felt that the area which is known as Langley Park, the newest development that is almost completed there to the left of the driving range, absolutely felt seamlessly part of Langley. The community facilities of Langley are just across the road. there's a significant piece that's not in the parish that sits between the main body of Broughton Monchelsea parish. So I want to stress this is just a personal view that I've always had, and I just wanted to offer those thoughts to the committee as you move this to the next stage of consultation. And I'm not sure whether the framing of the consultation is, do you like this scenario or do you like that scenario, so much as here's a hard recommendation, what do you think to that? And I feel there is some parallel of consideration with regard to the boundary change that we've just been hearing about with regard to Boxley. You know, we've got one part of the recommendation saying, well, that should be tidied up, it feels more urban and less part of it, and a similar case could be argued with this particular piece of Langley. Thank you.
Councillor Hinder. Sorry, I'm not used to this. Thank you very much, Councillor Burton.
Good evening. Thank you, Chair, for allowing me to speak on this subject. This is a subject that is very, very close to my heart. I've been a parish councillor for a long time, and may I say how proud I've always been of Boxley Parish Council. It's been rated outstanding on numerous occasions, serves, I believe, the community extremely well, and this did come as a bit of a shock, well, a huge shock to me and to the parish council. I believe it's a case where, members, you have got to try and balance what the residents of Grove Green, in particular, would gain from your decisions or what they would lose from your decisions. And I believe that they would lose an awful lot. The parish council provides numerous things, and when I sat down and started to go into this in depth, I was even surprised myself at how much the parish council does and provides for that community. And I would therefore request that, apart from anything else, that if it does, you do decide, and eventually, and it goes out to consultation, that consultation should inform the residents fully of what the parish council does provide and what they would possibly lose out on if it was withdrawn. Our allotments that I helped set up 10 years ago, well over a quarter or about a third of those allotments are taken up by residents from Grove Green. And it's quite clear in their tenancy agreement that if they're not a resident of the parish, they are not entitled to have an allotment. The implications for that, if they become out of the parish, are huge. I was also told that we have a closed church yard in Boxley, which at present, again, is open to residents from Grove Green to choose to inter their beloved if they so wish. If it becomes unparished, that again is something withdrawn. Vinters Valley Trust. Who would take on Vinters Valley Trust and help them run it if it became unparished? You, I believe, have received a communication indicating that Boxley Parish Council would lose the precept from that area. I would suggest that the precept from that area goes straight back into that area. Vinters Valley Trust takes an awful lot of money and maintenance from Boxley Parish Council. Would the Borough Council, if it became unparished, take that on? Would you take on parish play areas, such as Franklin Drive, which was threatened with closure by NBC until my wife stepped in and fought long and hard to get it taken over by the parish to keep it going? Would that carry on? It's a very difficult question you're faced with, but I believe that if you put the thoughts and of the residents first, I think you will find that they are, and inform them properly, keep them properly informed, then you'll find that they would be quite happy for it to stay as it is. There is one proposal on the table, members, and I'll draw your attention. I believe, I may get this wrong, but I believe it's map 3C or 3D, which shows a proposal to take away a small part of Vinters estate and put that into Vinters. And in lieu of that, the parish take over the area around Orchard Road and the top end of Weavering. I personally go along with that suggestion, but I certainly don't go along with the suggestion, members, of drawing a line along the M20 and saying, right, that's it, take it away. Thank you.
Right, I'd just like to focus where we are before we start the debate. These suggestions come up from stage 1 consultation. Parishes were invited, and the electorate were invited to respond to that consultation. There were a lot of parishes like mine that put a lot into it. Some didn't. But coupled to that tonight, we have officers' appreciation of different areas, and they've been put in front of you. I'm aware that not everyone attended the workshop, but there was a thorough workshop. There's been talk of precept. You spend the precept where you raise the precept, so that doesn't come into it. Now, the way I would like to focus our debate would be to go through them very quickly and indicate to me whether you wish to comment on that particular item. I'll then go back to each item. We will put the map up in front of us. We will debate that item. And then once we have completed that, if an amendment needs to be raised, we'll raise an amendment, and we will go through only those that members have a comment on. I would say that people that wish to speak in favour, you will be able to show you're in favour by your vote at the end, or during the debate that someone wants to bring up a comment. So I'm really looking for those people with a comment. So I'm going to start with Barming, Eastern Boundary. Just indicate with your hand if anyone wants to comment on that.
No, I'm in support of it.
No, I'm just going to quickly run through, find the ones we've got to talk about. So we've got Bolton and Chelsea, North and East Boundary, Bolton and Chelsea. Does anyone want to debate that?
Only if we...
2B is the other one in Bolton and Chelsea, which is West Hubbard's Lane. Boxley. Right, we have 3 in Boxley. I believe, reading the lobbying, we've got Orchard Drive and Lamberty Drive. I think, does anyone want to bring those 2 up? Okay, we've got Grove Green. So Grove Green we'll go back and debate. Chart Sutton, wouldn't expect, that's quite a minor one. Cox Heath. Downswood, and we've got only 1 in Downswood. Lewes. Okay. Ottham. Thurnham. Towell. There are other proposals. There's one that the officers are recommending about Allington being parished along with its church parish boundaries, which they're recommending against. Does anyone? Bearsted suggestion that it be abolished. Does anyone want to speak on Maidstone Town Centre suggested forming
Mr.
town
Chairman,
centre?
both Val Springett and I would like to make a brief observation about Bearsted.
About Bearsted. Okay. So that would be additional to what I've got in front of me. Right. Okay.
Mr. Chairman, sorry, 2A, I don't think you had it on this. I think that's the one Councillor Burton was talking about.
That
I
was
think
the
I would
one
like
that
a little
Councillor
bit of a
Burton
discussion
brought
on
up.
that one. Yeah, I would like to have a little discussion on that one. Thank you.
Okay. Right then, so if we can have map 2A up. And Councillor Springett.
Yeah, it's just a comment that I think it's known as Langley Park, isn't it? So I'm just a bit confused. I think this should stay within Langley, unless I'm misunderstanding this. I mean, it's called Langley Park Centre. So if I'm right, it wouldn't be part of Langley anymore, if I'm understanding what Councillor Burton said, unless I'm misunderstanding it.
Langley Park Farm is to the east. Langley Park Farm owned a lot of ground that was farmed by Langley Park Farm, hence the name of the estate. It has always been in Bolton-on-Chelsea. It is in Bolton-on-Chelsea. The boundary, the green boundary you can see to the east is what is being proposed to be brought in parallel with Langley Park, being left in Langley Park. So that is the proposal.
I'd just like to make a general comment that, particularly with newer developments, there is an increasing propensity for developers to name places after what they want to name them after, not necessarily where they are actually located, often related to what they think will sell better. So I'll just highlight that when we're considering new developments, and also when the next round of community governance review comes forward, no doubt we'll have places named all sorts of things. So I'll just highlight that.
That's a fair point. I accept that. Thank you.
On this particular proposal, knowing the area fairly well, I must endorse the comments that Councillor Mumford has made about the historical relationship of this area, and it really is important. Bolton-on-Chelsea always has been.
If I could just come back, I would say thank you, and thank you, Mr. O'Connell, for that comment. I know lots of developers try and put lots of places in Bearsted that aren't, because it sort of puts the price up. So that's a very valid comment. Thank you very much.
So moving on, oh, by the way, across the road in Ottham, you'll find a Monchelsea Place. So moving on, and what we've got comments, and the first person that was commenting was Councillor English, was 3C Grove Green.
I think a number of extraneous factors have been raised in relation to the Boxley and other parish councils. The issue of how much a precept is and the reserves that are held by a parish council, are not a matter for a community governance review. They may be a matter for the district auditor, but that's another issue. What I would observe is that there might be a case, in my opinion, for saying that Grove Green should be a separate parish as the community grows and develops over time, and perhaps that part of Fernham that was coming into that should be part of that new parish, but going forward. However, I think it would be very disruptive for that part of the borough not to be parished at all. We have had a situation, those members of the planning committee are well aware of, that we time and time again would like open space or play areas to be provided with development, and we keep having our own parks department saying, oh, the borough can't take on any more parks or open spaces, we've got to close down on what we've already got. If there were no parish council in Boxley at all, there would be a considerable amount of institutional disruption. There would be a considerable spaces where an institutional organisation used to be, whether that's affecting the Vinters Valley Trust or leaving lots of orphaned allotments and play areas. I don't think Maidstone Borough Council, with the best will in the world, is in a position to take on large numbers of additional open spaces, halls, and other commitments. The easiest solution to me is to leave it as it is with the existing parish council, and if in due course a demand should arise, as it may well arise, whether to be a separate parish for Grove Green, for that to be dealt with in the fullness of time. I think the simplest solution at this moment is not to create unnecessary problems and difficulties for the public and ourselves where they don't exist. And I don't see a case for unparishing this area, because it will cause far more difficulty and trouble and probably expense to the taxpayers of Maidstone overall than it will conceivably save. So I would strongly suggest that at this point we keep the existing parish council, and maybe in the future community governance reviews we may consider whether there should be a separate one for Grove Green, but not now.
Thank you. Can I just focus us all on what we're doing? We are not deciding on boundaries. We are deciding what goes to consultation.
Suggesting that we don't move this forward to consultation, that we leave it as it is, that we don't move it forward.
Councillor Perry.
Well, I totally support everything that Councillor English has just said, actually. I read this and I was quite unhappy, actually, because to unparish an area creates a huge amount of problems, and I think would be very disruptive, and I don't think it would be beneficial to the residents of that particular area. And the other thing I would say is that Boxley is one of the most successful parish councils. You don't mess around with a winning team, in my view, and I think Boxley is a very, very well run and very successful, has a long history of being very well run, and I couldn't believe why we want to mess around with it, quite frankly. So I totally support what Councillor English says, and I think this should be, dare I use a basic word, binned out. I don't think we should even take it any further. And I would point out that in your paper you say this proposal did not arise from the stage 1 consultation, so presumably it wasn't even considered. So this should be not considered any further. Thank you very much.
Brian. Sorry. I'll take Councillor Jeffrey first and then come back to you.
Thank you. I suppose the thing I'm missing in terms of this debate is the bit that would come out as part of the consultation. What do the people of Grove Green feel as part of their, aligned to as part of their community? I know Grove Green very well. I mean, I even lived there as a child. I didn't live in Grove Green, I lived in Weavering. And when I lived in Weavering, we thought we were part of Bearsted, not Boxley. But, you know, hey, that was a long time ago. So the thing I'm missing is and we heard from one of the parish councillors, and he didn't mention the people in the community of Grove Green, which to me feels very much a cohesive whole. And I think, you know, we ought to be giving those people the chance to comment on whether or not they feel part of Boxley, whether they prefer to have Grove Green as its own parish area or not. I think there is a chance to build a community here that we'll lose if we don't put this into the consultation. And I do accept all the points that are made about parks, open spaces, and so forth. And to be honest, I'd love Maidstone Town to have its own council, so we could solve this across the entirety of the borough. But we're not at that place yet. So I think there are some really good options being put forward that demonstrate a community across Grove Green that could be that is currently fractured between Thurnham, a non-parished area, and Boxley, that could be brought together as a single whole. So I really would like to see this remain in the consultation.
Thank you very much, Councillor Jeffrey. Some parishes, as you will see, that Tovel and Bearsted and Bolton and Chelsea responded, individuals. Tovel and Bearsted residents suggested that they abolish the parish councils. My understanding, we had no response from Grove Green either way. That's my understanding. Can I just bring Councillor Bartlett in, and then I'll bring Ryan in?
Thank you, Chair. I have to say I agree with Councillor Jeffrey. I think most people in Grove Green would consider themselves sort of more aligned with Bearsted or Thurnham than Boxley, and I think yes, it should stay in the consultation, and we should see have more chance for people to air their views and see where they want to be.
Ryan.
I don't think there's been any direct questions in what people have been saying for me to respond to, but I will just highlight that the reason why the question was asked and put forward and discussed at the workshop with the members is because of recognising the community identity of different areas. And there has been a significant amount of development, as everybody knows, around Maidstone over the last few decades, and we haven't done a full community governance review recently. So when we look at that, we're trying to identify areas that may have their own identity, and then we're asking them, in the case of, well, the proposal would be to ask them in Grove Green, which is an area that I think does identify itself as Grove Green, what form of community governance they would prefer. In doing that, no one, me least of all, would have to do most of the work, is underestimating just how much difficulty or work it would create to unparish an area, but that is not the question we're asking. We're asking on what community governance you prefer, unparished, parished, or your own parish. And then, as I highlighted earlier, even then, when you look at the guidance that is provided on what is the best forms of community governance and how to conduct a community governance review, it basically puts a brake on saying, let's just unparish this area. It allows another 2 electoral cycles to run. So what this is asking is, do you want to ask the question of Grove Green about their preferred method of community governance? And if I can just follow up with something perhaps a little unusual, which is to ask Councillor English a question. He said that maybe in a future community governance review we would look at it. I'm interested as to what the trigger would be that would mean we look at it in a future one. That means we don't look at it now, given that we've just had a ward boundary review that has set the new ward boundary and drawing it across the M20. So, and we can identify Grove Green as a community. What is the additional trigger that you would look for before you would ask them the question?
Well, I would suggest that as all the other proposals in this review came forward with some sort of expression of public or institutional interest, and this did not, the trigger would be some indication somewhere, somehow, that there was some actual demand in Grove Green from a change from the status quo. Now, I would hope that those members who are elected to the Borough Council to represent this ward now or in the future, and the parish councillors will actually get off their jackses and actually ask the residents of Grove Green over the next few years what their preferred option would in fact be. Personally, I would have no objection if we were actually to go out and consult on whether Grove Green should be a parish of its own or remain with Boxley. I do think it would be devastating it would create a devastating amount of damage if we were to parish the area, I really do think. And unfortunately, there is a tendency for people to say, oh, I might save 10 quid a year, so I'll vote to get rid of the parish. So I'm very worried that we will get a sort of superficial, knee-jerk, in the middle of a cost of living crisis, reaction from people saying, oh, I can save 10, 20 quid a year, and then we end up with all these play areas and everything else closed, and a massive amount of buyer's remorse. So I'm not going to die in a ditch, and I think Stuart has some good points, that we're consulting on whether they should be one parish council or another. I don't think would be devastating, but I do think if there is a serious danger, we end up with a relatively uninformed, knee-jerk reaction to save a few quid, and we end up living to regret it. A trigger for me would be some indication that some group of people, even if it's a minority, are actually interested in changing from the status quo, and I've seen no evidence whatsoever that there are any people in Grove Green that are actually lobbying for this change or any other change. It did not come from the stage 1 consultation. I think that's important.
Okay, I'm going to move on. Val.
Thank you. Could I just ask Mr. O'Connell, is Grove Green actually big enough to become a parish of its own? Is there a size? Because though it is identified as a set area, it's not that big. Does it come down to number of residents, and would it be able to be its own parish, or would it find itself falling through a hole in the drain that it either has got to be part of Boxley or its own parish because it's too small to be parish? So first, that's my first point. I'd like to come back on another point after that's answered, please.
Yeah.
I think if you look at the parish size appendix, you'll see the vast range in sizes that there are in Maidstone Borough alone, let alone across the country, where they range from, so some parishes have over 100,000 people in them. So there isn't that. At the bottom end, I'd say it's about 3,500 people there. So it can perfectly sustain a parish, and it would be significantly bigger than a number of our other parishes. But that's not really a factor in answering the question, beyond the fact that, say, unlike looking at the Langley Park development, where you wouldn't say, oh, let's parish that on its own, because that would be, too small. It gets over that threshold, and then it's fine. I'm also mindful, obviously, with all these things, when we look at community governance, that we do struggle. Well, sometimes it helps at election time, but we do struggle to fill parish council posts and vacancies. So we do need to be mindful of the community being able to actually have support and generate, the desire to support its own parish.
Thank you. And on the second comment, it's actually more of a comment I wish to make. I think there's going to be a lot of confusion in communities about this consultation. I will just highlight an incident that I observed on Monday. I went to Thurnham Parish Council on Monday, and a gentleman was there, and he said, I live in Thurnham, and I'd like to join Thurnham Parish Council. And the chair said, where do you live? And he went, oh, no, I don't think you are in Thurnham. He said, well, I'm in Detling and Thurnham Borough. It turns out he's in Boxley Parish. Because of the recent elections that were for Detling and Thurnham, he thought he was in Thurnham Parish. So he's in Detling and Thurnham Borough and Boxley Parish. Now, if that gentleman can be confused, I suspect there's an awful lot more. So I just want to make the point, I think we're going to have to word the consultation quite carefully so that people actually understand what they're being asked, because it was a fascinating little 10-minute scenario, and he just walked out and went, oh, well, I'm totally confused now, and off he went. So I think the actual wording on the consultation needs to be quite cleverly worded so that people do actually understand what's involved. Thank you.
So, yeah, I think we should understand how the consultation is going to take place with the flyers, the engagement with the parish council, etc.
So the proposals will be published on the website. They'll each have a map with them, with the boundaries on there, and obviously then people will be able to identify whether they are inside or outside a boundary, regardless of what ward they're in versus what parish they're in. But one of the main purposes of having a community governance review for convenient and effective local government, and also recognising communities, is to tidy up some of those issues where you do have little bits of communities that don't identify with the community that actually, you know, either their parish or their ward is part of. That is one of the things that we try to achieve by adjusting parish boundaries. So, I mean, I'm not saying they're confused, but if you look at, just because it's convenient with this one, but you've got the Vinters Park change that was referenced earlier. That's about identifying that Vinters Park, part of Boxley Parish, identifies with Vinters Park. And that's kind of what we're trying to do. Also, as part of the consultation, we are asking fairly open questions. So on the vast majority of them, the question is simply, are you for or against? What other alternative proposals do you have, or what are your reasons why? We want to get as much information out of people as to why they support them. So we're not trying to close it down and overcomplicate it. Having it quite simply laid out in front of people is very important.
Thank you. It was just a very interesting point of confusion that arose, that was all. So I just wanted to flag it up. Thank you.
I got a whole road that 85% of them thought they lived in Bolton and Chelsea and didn't. Right, I've got Councillor Hastie followed by Councillor Clark, and then I'm going to start coming to a conclusion on this. And if we can't get an amendment, we will probably move on. So, Councillor Hastie.
Thank you. My points really, they're not about any specific parish, but it's, at the end of the day, this is just a consultation exercise. We're not making a final decision. We're not chopping anyone out. And we're consulting for the benefit of the residents, not for the parish councils themselves. Obviously, they're never going to vote to cut their income by losing areas in parishes. I am speaking into the microphone. Well, shall I eat it? Yeah, it's a consultation. It's not a final decision, and it's for the benefit of the residents. And as people have said, we want to hear what they think and what particular residents in particular areas think. And consultation's the right way to do it.
Councillor Clark.
Thank you, Chairman. The questions that we're looking at giving out as part of this public consultation is, do you think Grove Green should remain part of Boxley Parish, become parished in its own right, become unparished? Please explain your reasoning, reference in the terms of reference for the review. We're going out to consultation. I don't think it's a bad thing for us to start building up an evidence base one way or the other. I think that Boxley Parish Council obviously is a force for good for a number of reasons, with things like play parks and the reserve. I don't think this committee is going to be completely going against the views of, if everyone wants to stay as part of Boxley and Boxley advocates as part of this consultation all of the benefits to residents that they provide, I think we'll take a sound, reasoned assessment of that when it comes back to us. So I think it would be a wasted opportunity not to start building an evidence base one way or the other.
Right, I will give my opinion. I'm sure Boxley Council, Parish Council, have built a community like all parish councils do over a long period of time. I hear from other members that some people don't know where the parish boundaries are and get confused. I am very concerned of getting a superficial answer, the same as Councillor English is talking about. This is about communities, not maps, not motorways. It's how well that Boxley has done. And I believe Boxley have done a reasonable job. And I am very concerned about the superficial response you will get. Someone brought it up about the cost of living. Boxley's precept is about 68 quid, and someone going round, come on, let's get 68 quid in our pocket. I'm very concerned about that. But if anyone wants to make an amendment to what is being proposed, we can vote on that now, or we can go forward.
Personally, I'd be quite happy to consult on whether they want to be a separate parish on their own. I'm very concerned about unparishing. I think it would be quite devastating. But if people wanted to take forward a proposal as to whether it should stay part of Boxley or become its own parish, I wouldn't have any objection.
Okay, I'm taking it that we're moving forward. Oh, sorry. Councillor Perry.
Yeah, I've heard the word consultation, if it's bounded around as a sort of force for evil, and everybody's going to feel really good about it. I remind you of the words of Clement Attlee, who said that referenda, and we're talking about referenda, were the device of dictators and demagogues. And in a sense, what is happening here is I'm really worried that the sort of answers you're going to get are going to be superficial. You said it yourself, Chairman, and I totally agree with that. Boxley Parish Council provides a very, very good service. I said it before and I'll repeat it. And I don't understand why it's even being considered for this, quite frankly. I don't think it needs it, I think. And what's going to happen to those play areas? Are they going to be on your consultation? Are you going to tell residents they're going to lose them? Because they will. Because they won't be financed by Maidstone Borough Council if it went unparished. I know that from my own experience as a cabinet member some 8 years ago. This is an issue. So you're not going to get a sensible answer out of this, I suspect. And all you'll get is a lot of people saying they've got a vested interest, and we don't want to pay the precept, therefore we'll go unparished. That would be a very dangerous position to go down. So. I just plea with you not to go down the unparished route. I think that's really, really bad idea. And I don't really see the need for this consultation, quite frankly, on what is a very well-run and traditionally well-run parish council. Thank you.
So in the absence of anyone wanting to make an amendment to the substantive, yeah. Are you moving an amendment to the substantive? Which
yes, I'm happy to move an amendment to not go forward with this recommendation.
With this particular site.
With this particular.
We are talking about Grove Green.
Yeah.
Do I have a seconder for that amendment? Do you want to speak again?
Very briefly, I just don't see that this did not come up from the public, unlike every other proposal, and therefore we should not necessarily feel committed to taking it forward.
Councillor Jeffrey, I'll take you last, and then we will go to the vote on the amendment.
I'd just like to speak against that amendment. I think we really ought to be trusting the public. This is not a referendum, this is a consultation. There is a trigger for it, and that was the boundary review. So we have a trigger. We need to be asking the people their thoughts. Let's not just assume that it's going to be superficial. People think these things through. We really do need to see what people feel and what community they feel they belong to. So I urge councillors to vote against that amendment.
Okay, so I'm taking that to the vote. The amendment is to remove the Grove Green part of the Boxley recommendations from stage 2 of the consultation. All those in favour? Against? Abstained? You did that to me, didn't you? So I voted for the amendment, and therefore I will stay where I thought, obviously. So that is an amendment to the substantive, and the substantive will be that Boxley Grove Green will not go forward. Okay, thank you for that, members. The next one I've got circled is North Lewes status. And I believe it was Councillor Clark wanted to comment on this.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, so This is a proposal to extend the boundary of North Lewes. Well, depending on how you look at it, it's a merging of North Lewes extending the boundary of the parish of Lewes, or combining North Lewes and Lewes. Currently, North Lewes, under the ward boundary changes, will start at the Wheatsheaf pub at North View, heading south. The boundary with Lewes parish is around Lancet Lane and midway through Pickering Street. And I think people that live in the overall area, North Lewes and Lewes, do see themselves as part of the Lewes community. If you were to look at, for instance, the demographic of residents in Waldron Drive and the demographics of residents in Anglesey Avenue, you would see the same demographic. And other than the fact that there's a line down the back gardens of Lancet Lane, most people would see themselves as part of the same community. North Lewes Residents Association isn't a parish, but it does have an adopted neighbourhood plan. They've been very active, as most members will know, over the last 20 years or so. They've not only got their own neighbourhood plan, they've also worked with Lewes historically. We've got certain planning documents like the Lewes Road Area Character Assessment document that spans that area. So there's quite a lot of connection between the two areas. The risk at the moment, and this is one of the reasons why this is a good opportunity, this whole body of work, is that North Lewes Residents Association, I served there on the committee before I became a councillor. It's how I got involved in local politics. They're becoming quite aged, and in actual fact most of the committee now is over 70. People don't seem to realise that because they're so active, but they are very, very active, and over the course of time it's been very difficult to get younger people involved, so they really want to look at the future and how that body of work that they've done to sort of establish themselves can continue. Now, we talked earlier about the importance of a parish. I think people in North Lewes see themselves as part of a similar setup, even though it's not a parish. And that's long sort of established, it's ingrained. When there are issues, people quite often will call the North Lewes Residents Association committee members before they will call the council. And we're trying to keep that sort of continuity, certainly in spirit, as it goes out to public consultation. We know that the idea of becoming a parish will be controversial with certain people, but it's a great opportunity for us to get this out into the consultation, start building that evidence base, and if we find, which I'm sure we will, that people are generally supportive, I think it's very beneficial for us to look to complete this as part of this significant proposal between now and May. I think that's most of the points that I wanted to raise. And one point I will mention, just on the parish side, is that actually some of the older residents in North Lewes see themselves as being part of Lewes because the parish boundaries did take in a large amount of that area. And if you look at the cast iron signpost at the Swan Pub, it actually says Lewes Parish, even though it's significantly far from the parish boundary. So we're kind of almost looking back at sort of re-establishing some of the boundaries that some people think are still in place today.
So I did say we deal with those that want to change something. You don't want to change anything, you want to support.
I really wanted to let members understand that the level of support both by Lewes Parish and North Lewes, this isn't something where one side is thinking they will gain from it. This is something where everyone will gain, and I hope that everyone will be supporting this proposal.
Understood. Councillor English.
Unlike the previous item, this is, I think, fortunately rather uncontroversial and is a positive benefit to absolutely everyone in both communities. It should go forward for consultation, and I sincerely hope and trust that it will go forward to actually happening, because it will be significantly to the benefit of the community, which at the moment is in two halves, related and working with each other, but still in two halves, and this will draw it together and make it a cohesive whole, and it's a thoroughly good thing, and I support it.
I think most of us are in support of this, but I will take Councillor Perry last, but if you're going to support it, it's going to happen.
Yes, I do. I totally support it, and I support what Councillor Clark has said and Councillor English. There are two neighbourhood plans. Both North Lewes has an excellent neighbourhood plan. They beat Staplehurst to getting the gold medal for the first of the neighbourhood plans, and I think this is an excellent proposal. So I really totally support it, and I think it would work very, very well. So thank you.
So I'm going to move forward. We got to autumn. For some reason I circled that, but that seems like an eternity ago. Does anyone want to talk on autumn? I've got Tovel circled. Okay, my next one would, yeah. Tovel. Yeah. Yeah.
I just sort of wanted to comment. It's sort of on the same lines as the Grove Green. In here, we've got a petition that some people want to abolish Tovel Parish Council, and we've decided to take it off the consultation. And seeing as this is just a consultation, and there is some support for sort of taking the parish away from Tovel, could we maybe move that actually that goes forward to consultation?
Right, Councillor Clark. Right.
On this, I've been involved with Tovel Parish Council since it was created as a result of a residents' campaign for the parish council, and it was created along with Downswood, which wasn't the subject of a similar campaign, but it was felt that the growth of the community was such it deserved its own parish. Many people over the years have fought to create a parish council in Tovel. There has been one family of whom we all know who they are, who have been associated with the parish council, and one of them was a member of the borough council, who have actively campaigned for years to abolish the parish council. But they've only managed in all those years to get that level of support, which is considerably fewer than the number of people who voted for candidates supporting the parish in the last parish council election. And we did have a highly contested and competitive parish council election very recently. Suggests that there is no particular support in the community for abolition. We would know as members of the parish council, and I'm sure Brian and Paul and Derek would know as borough councillors if there was any such high standard of concern. What we have had is a persistent campaign against the parish clerk, against the chairman, against the previous parish clerk by one family and their friends. And we should not dignify that by a consultation.
For members' information, I've been told that the petition was less than 100, and you've got 3,200 residents there, just so you know those facts. Councillor Clark?
I just wanted to from the workshop, it was my understanding that there was less than 100 that had signed that petition. And when you sort of compare that to the number of volunteers that came together when we were in the pandemic, I think that those people that signed the petition have got every right to put their thoughts forward as part of this consultation, but I don't think it should drive how we put this out to public consultation.
So, I'm coming back to you, Councillor Bartlett.
I propose that we keep it in.
I understand what you're saying. I mean, 87 people isn't one family, and like you say, we are just putting this forward for consultation. I'm not suggesting that we should get rid of that Tovel Parish Council, but I personally don't see why this can't go forward to consultation. If we let people have their say, and if everyone's in favour of keeping Tovel Parish Council, then fine, we will keep it. But we are just moving this to consultation, and I don't feel that sort of removing the public's right to have their say in it is a positive step forward.
Okay, I'm allowed to talk occasionally, and on my side of life, I'm still concerned about a superficial response to that, and I would not be in favour of asking whether a parish council or an area should be unparished. I wouldn't be in favour of that, but that's me personally. Councillor Hastie.
Thank you. I agree with Councillor Bartlett. Why can't they have a say? You know, if other parishes are having a say, just because there are people that certain people don't want their opinion, that doesn't give them the right to just say, no, you can't have a consultation at all. It's a consultation. It can go forward and we can hear what people say. It's not necessarily going to be a superficial thing. All of a sudden, everyone in that particular parish is going to go, yeah, I agree with them. They're going to think about it, and they should be given the right to think about it and put their opinions forward.
I am going to include Councillor Clark. I'm then going to look for a proposal before I move on.
To clarify my last point, the papers are proposing a minor amendment to Courtney Road because there are a number of properties that that are unique because they don't follow the path of the other section of Coombe Farm Estate, and I would like to propose that we carry forward with item 10. The proposal is to move the Tovel parish boundary to exclude all properties along Courtney Road consistent with the rest of the area, and that is specifically because the rest of Coombe Farm Estate is not part of the parish. There's just a few houses. It's my understanding that this is in this consultation purely to address an anomaly rather than to look to abolish Tovel Parish Council. So I would just like to propose that we go forward as written up in point 10.
I would second that we go forward simply with that proposal, which is a rectification. I am opposed in principle to unparishing parts of the borough. It is not a good move, and it is a disastrous thing to do. I will not support any proposal for simply unparishing an area.
Members, I would point out that I'm looking for amendments against the recommendation. That is, it is recommended there, yeah, and we will do the whole thing at the end. The only amendment I want are those that are not part of the recommendation. That is, yeah. So, do you have a proposal?
So I wanted to support Councillor Bartlett's proposal. If that is...
Councillor Bartlett has yet to give me a proposal. Councillor Bartlett.
Sorry, I did suggest that we amend an amendment that we include the option to de-parish Tovel.
Okay, so...
Or go to consultation on that.
Do I have a seconder? Councillor... Oh, all right. Councillor Jeffrey, would you like to speak now?
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to, so I'm seconding it. I don't want to see it unparished, but I do think we have, given that people have responded to stage 1 of the consultation, it does feel right that we do ask the public. We can't just assume that we'll get superficial responses. We don't have to follow their decision. That's not a requirement. It's a consultation, not a referendum. I said that earlier. And I don't want to see it unparished, but I think we've got a right, we've got a responsibility to ask them, given that we have had a petition.
Can I bring the officers in?
Okay, so I need to draw members' attention and really highlight why officers didn't recommend taking this forward. And it is set out in 2.29. We have to follow the guidance that's available when conducting community governance reviews, and that guidance is fairly clear about abolishing parish councils, that it's not something to be done lightly. And in fact, even if we received a petition to trigger a community governance review, which isn't what's happened here, what's happened is we've gone out to consultation and we've received essentially part of a petition in response to that stage 1 consultation. But even if we received a petition asking us to do it, it says, as part of a community governance review, Principal Council should consider whether a recommendation made by petitioners will undermine community cohesion in any part of its area. And then in the second part, paragraph 120, explains what I spoke about earlier in terms of you should think really carefully about actually abolishing and removing a layer of community governance. whereas the other proposals were about adjusting boundaries and asking questions about alternative community governance proposals. Here, there is no alternative proposal put forward for Tovel, including, for example, the large swathes of rural area that there are for the parish. I feel I should also declare at this point, I don't know if it's relevant, but I do live in Tovel and I'm a Tovel resident, so I just feel I should declare that.
After hearing that, do you still want to carry on?
I do, and I just want to clarify, like Councillor Jeffrey, I'm not suggesting that I do want to abolish Tovel Parish Council, and I take Ryan's points, but I do think there is a case for putting it out to consultation. And we're not saying that we are going to abolish it, and even if people say they do want to abolish it, as
Okay,
Councillor
that will
Jeffrey
go.
said, we don't have
That
to do
will
it.
go out to consultation if the recommendations are amended. So we've got a proposal on the ground. We've got a seconder. All those in favour? All those against? The amendment fails. Did you get the numbers? Sorry, there was no abstentions, was there? No. The only other circle I've got is for Councillor English wants to speak about Bearsted. Not all of Bearsted, please, can
I just wanted to make a point that I'm sure Councillor Springett will agree with me that there were some serious issues at Bearsted Parish Council last year and the year before, which shows the dangers of perhaps rushing to judgment. Those issues have been completely and utterly resolved, and the residents of Bearsted are now quite happy with their parish council. Had there been a community governance review last year and a sudden vote, the parish council could well have died, but because those issues were substantial, but they have been resolved, and the residents have by and large changed their mind, and we have had some very, very positive feedback, which suggests to me that it is quite dangerous to rush to judgment and urgent consultations on certain parish issues.
last one that I'm taking, Councillor Springer.
Thank you. It was just that I was also going to point out in Appendix A on page 36, it just comments that no support was identified for the proposals and the rationale given focuses on current issues. It's not current issues, it's past issues. Last year, the parish council, I think it was fairly well known, went through an absolute period of turmoil from about the summer onwards. I was not on the parish council then, I didn't come onto it till this year. At the end of the year, the chair resigned. Within about a week, the vice chair resigned, and there was a huge turmoil. That was followed by about 4 other resignations, I believe. So there's been quite a churn of members, and since then, I suspect the comment was made relating to the issues that were there last year, and I think that the commentator would probably comment differently now. So I just wish to clarify, it's not current issues, it's recent past issues. Thank you.
Yeah, but we're not including that in our recommendation to do away with the...
To put it out there, that I felt that was not very clearly worded.
Okay.
Thank you.
To give everyone a fair crack of the whip, has anyone got any comments they haven't been able to put forward? Right, I'm now going to move to the available options, and we've now amended the substantive, so I can't see a proposal written down. That we are page 22, 3 of them.
It's moving the proposals in the urgent
Right,
update.
so if you go to the front of the report, page 22, item 1, we have amended item 1 to exclude the Grove Green recommendation on the papers. So does everyone clear on what we are voting on? Are you clear on...
Do we not need to include the urgent update?
What's the urgent update, please?
So the urgent update just sets out for members' information how what wording is going to be included in the consultation, just so members have that available to them this evening. So the second recommendation refers to agreeing the two-tier approach. So we're only going to really target specific conversations and leafleting at those larger proposals, not for all the small proposals.
Okay, so is everyone else clear on what we're voting on? All those in favour? And that's unanimous. Thank you very much, members. Item 2, that the two-tier approach consultation as set out in Annex B be approved. All those in favour? Against? Again, that was unanimous. And 3, we should note the provision for parish size changes at Annex C. The minimum number of parish councillors is 7, but on there is 5, and the reason they've put 5 on there because it's so difficult in the smaller parishes to get 7. But am I correct? Yeah.
So the NALC recommendation is that you have a minimum size of 7. Legally, the minimum size is 5, and given the difficulties that have been on some of those, we have some very small parishes that are only just above parish meeting size, that we recommend that they're staying at 5 because of the difficulties in actually getting parish councillors to come forward.
Members, thank you very much for being gentle with me and giving me the casting vote. I really wanted that. Meeting closed. Thank you.